We are back. This is TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm THI staff Chelsea Sipple. This is THI staff publisher Andrew Jones, and he's out here at the Tucker Center in Tallahassee. I'm back at my dorm in Chapel Hill, but we're going to be talking about the Tar Heels game, 75 versus 68 win to Florida State. And wow, AJ, this is the first time Carolina has been 9-0 in the ACC since 2001. I mean, what a record right now for the Tar Heels.
Yeah, the Tar Heels, they're this was a really good win.
This was.
It wasn't pretty all the time, but that's
Yeah.
the thing. I think the best wins are when a lot of stuff goes wrong and you have a lot of obstacles that you have to overcome. And I think that the Tar Heels created some obstacles for themselves today. And I also think that they did a good job of overcoming those obstacles. So Florida State's a good team. They're an NCAA tournament team. I don't care what the record says. I don't care what that stupid net says. This is a very different team than the one that lost to South Florida back in December. They're healthy now, and you saw them today. That's an NCAA tournament team, and it took the Tar Heels to win in the trenches, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But I think that the key here is there's a lot of keys, Chelsea, and that's the great thing about this team because they check so many boxes, and they have to check a lot of boxes in order to win games like this. But tonight it was Elliot Cadeau and RJ Davis.
Mm-hmm.
Elliot was outstanding. He's beaming with confidence. When he now realizes he could take everybody off the dribble in the ACC, and Florida State was switching like crazy. I was surprised they kept switching with bigs, but I think one of the things that they wanted was their bigs could move, so they're very athletic and bouncy. They could stick with him, but they thought also the length would affect him. But Elliott has that one-hand layup where he shoots it in a way that length can't get to it, and he kisses it up off the glass and it goes in. Some of the time, sometimes it doesn't go in, but he gets that stuff off most of the time. And he is really looking like a guy that is very, very comfortable now. I asked him if it now feels like it did before he got to Carolina. In other words, when he played for the Swiss national team, or when he played in high school last year, and he said, yeah, AAU. He said it's now feeling like that. So when we've talked in the last month about how this team can get better, that was one of the earmarks. Elliot Cadeau becoming the dude people thought he was going to be before he arrived. And everyone had to sort of pump the brakes and recognize that the guy's 18 years old, 19 years old, and it takes time. Not everybody is on the schedule that fans want them on, and Elliot has now sped that process up. He was outstanding today. He did so many things well. He put so much pressure. He put so much pressure on FSU's defense. That's what opened up all those catch and shoot threes for the Tar Heels. The Tar Heels hadn't been shooting as many catch and shoot threes in recent weeks, but they got a boatload of them today because RJ and Elliot made a concerted effort to get into the lane, to drive, and that's what Elliot's been doing. I ran a piece on him the other day where it had been 4.5 games since he had converted a field goal other than a layup or something, a runner right at the rim. And he was doing a lot more of that today. He drew a lot of fouls today. And on the other side of the tandem in the backcourt is RJ Davis, who is just an outstanding college player. He is climbing toward greatness as a college player, and I don't throw that word out very, very loosely. I'm not a big use of the word great guy, but he hits great shots. He has great stretches. He has stretches where he hoists the entire program on his shoulders and says, I'm going to do what a lot of dudes in this fabled place have done before me, and I'm going to match them, because that's what great North Carolina players do. That's what great North Carolina teams have on their rosters. And this is a really good North Carolina team, and it's got a guy playing great basketball. And I'll tell you what, Carolina missed 6 of their last 7 shots in the game, Chelsea, but the one they made was that crossover little floater in the lane by RJ. And it was just enough to get them into the winner's circle. And I think he finished with 24, led them in scoring again. That's 8 straight, maybe 16 out of 20.
Yeah.
And he does it in a way where he's not out there looking for his. He's not doing this, I'm going to get mine. He doesn't do that. He just knows it's there. And it comes without. A couple times he probably took some tough shots, but I thought the offensive movement and stretches in both halves was really bad, and it forced a lot of dribbling. It resulted in a lot of dribbling, not so much forced it. And RJ did that sometimes, but sometimes he makes shots when he's in those situations. So the two of them were outstanding today. Elliott, back-to-back games with double figures for the first time in his career, with 14 the other night, 16 today. Hit some free throws. I know that's going to help his confidence. He had 6 assists. By the first 3 minutes of the game, he had 4 points and 3 assists. So he got it going, and he finds his teammates. He's kicking out to the perimeter more. There's not a whole lot not to like. Even defensively, he's gotten better. This wasn't a great defensive game for the Tar Heels, but it wasn't horrible. They defended the lane better than they defended the perimeter. Somebody finally hit a bunch of threes on them, and you saw that the game came down to the wire. But it required having 2 really good guards, a really good tandem in the backcourt to win this game. This was an NCAA tournament kind of win. This was a Sweet 16 second round kind of win. The atmosphere didn't affect these kids. I think Florida State did. I think Florida State punched them a little bit, and the Tar Heels kind of were knocked back. It took them a while to recover, but they did. And one of the reasons they did is because their 2 guards, for the most part, were outstanding today. And this is a guard game, Chelsea, and March is a guard tournament. And if you're a North Carolina fan and you watch what transpired today, that should give you a tremendous amount of optimism, because their guards as a tandem today were outstanding.
Absolutely. And as much as we harped on our guards, I do want to talk about another player who made such a big impact is Ingram. And as far as his rebounds, you mentioned that Ingram had 6 10-plus rebounds in the last 8 games. I mean, he's making an impact down low, and especially tonight.
Yeah, and it's crazy. And here's the neat little thing about that stat. We do the 10-plus because it's double figures, but he's had 13-plus in 5 of those games.
Yeah.
In this stretch, he's had a 19, a 17, a 16, a 15, a 14, 13, something like that. It's crazy. And, Hubert talked a lot after the game about playing in the trenches. And he's been using that term a lot in the last month. And I may even overdo it to the point where I write my column about it today. I haven't decided yet. But I asked Hubert after the game if Harrison Ingram is the personification of living in the trenches. And he immediately said yes. Because he does absolutely everything you need him to do. He's the quintessential do-everything guy, and some of the stuff he does are the kinds of things that very few players like to do, even the great ones. The great ones don't want to hit the floor 18 times in a game like he must have today, especially when their wrist is taped up, because it's been bothering him all year, although he did say after the game it feels better than it has since it got hurt against Kentucky, which was 6 weeks ago today. But 17 rebounds, he gets him on the offensive end. He gets him in traffic among the trees. He gets the long rebounds. He'll tap one out on occasion. He is making every possible human effort that he has within him to get to the ball. And not just those, but it's the loose balls. And then tonight, Florida State, I can't remember who it was that drove. I think they beat RJ. And Harrison rotated over, which is something this team has done very well defensively this year, and he blocks a shot. So Hubert said as big as his 17 rebounds were, none of them were as big as that block shot. So he is a fantastic player. He is the ultimate glue guy who flares up statistically. And by the way, today he finished with 13 points, Chelsea. It was the first time since Connecticut he had scored more than 11. So, and he would have had, I think it was an alley-oop. That was to Withers. There was another situation where he missed a basket in the lane. He should have converted. He wasn't alone. Tar Heels left some points at the rim today, but he could have been up to 15. And they need that. As much as he does all those other things, they need he or Ryan to get up into that 14, 15 range enough so that it's there when they need it. He needs to get a little bit more scoring production. That's something that I'll probably talk about in a drop this week if we're going to itemize a few concerns about this team. But his effort's not a concern, his defense not a concern, and absolutely his rebounding is not a concern. In fact, Hubert's been saying all year, this is not an Armando rebounding team. It's a North Carolina rebounding team. He may want to swap out Armando's name for Harrison Ingram, because Harrison is leading the ACC in ACC play, I believe, in rebounds, and he's 6'7". Armando had 4 today, and I'm not going to bang on Armando. I think people need to understand what Armando's role has changed into. But Harrison is a rebound grabbing machine. He is a grit machine. He's a sweating machine, which he takes pride in because he changes his uniform at halftime. He sweats so much. And it's not just because he's a sweater. It's because he just puts literally every ounce of everything into what he does on the court. And like with Elliott and also RJ, who is so composed and plays so hard and does the trenches thing on the perimeter, Harrison does that stuff as well, and it just spreads out to the rest of the team. Nobody stepped on the floor for North Carolina today that didn't play if as far as intensity goes, like their hair was on fire. All of them had their hair on fire. They play like it every game. They haven't had that what the heck kind of game yet. They had some what the heck stretches today, but let's credit Florida State for some of that too. That's a good basketball team, and they're going to win some more games. But
absolutely,
I love watching Harrison Ingram play. I just love watching him play.
He's so fun to watch and so fun to talk to.
Yeah, he is. I would imagine that Carolina fans had a love affair with Brady Mann a couple years ago. I would think that they're starting to have that with Harrison Ingram too.
Oh, I see it. Well, we've been talking so greatly about RJ and Elliott and Harrison. Let's talk about the team, and I want to drop some statistics. Carolina is the only P6 unbeaten on the road to true road games, meaning 5-0. And also, UNC is plus 85 in scoring in the second half of the last 8 games. I mean, we are a second half team. So what does this mean moving forward in the schedule?
Yeah, well, North Carolina's been a second half team. I wrote a piece earlier this week at Days All Run Together, as everybody knows, where it itemized Carolina's closing in the second half. And 12 of the first 16 wins, they closed strong. Now, they didn't close great tonight from a statistical standpoint, but they used a 23-6 run in the second half to flip the game around. The FSU went up 46-38. And scored on its first couple of positions, hit a 3. And sometimes the team hits a lot of threes in the first half. They don't hit them in the second half. Basketball's kind of crazy that way. And it was an 8-point game. And for the one time today, I thought, you know what? They might actually lose this game. This will be interesting to see how they handle it. And boom, 23-6 run. It began with defense. They filled the lanes well. They got great looks. They had so many catch and shoot threes in that stretch. And it was another example of this team just being a really good second half team. And then they gritted their way at the end. They didn't score 6 of their last 7 possessions, but they got the win because they gritted their way. They trenched their way. They lunch pailed their way. They tool belted in, hard hatted their way, and all those cliches that I have used all year long. They become cliches at this point. That's just kind of who this team is. And there's enough skill and finesse there and then some. I did a drop Friday. I wasn't sure how it was going to come over, but I called it the brawling ballerinas. And that's what this group is. They brawl, and they're comfortable brawling. And this was a brawl tonight because nobody's talked more trash on the floor this year than Florida State did today. And that's fine. Tar Heels responded to it. But they also were enough ballerina. You know, Elliott was a ballerina getting in the lane a lot of the time. RJ just always has that in him. I thought Cormac Ryan had some absolutely gorgeous shots today. Defensively, they did some ballerina stuff as well. So they are a really, really good team. They're 17-3 now. They've won 10 in a row. They're 9-0 in the ACC. They're number 3 in the rankings. I don't know what the top 2 teams have done this week or today. I have no idea what any of the scores are, except apparently Louisville couldn't score anything earlier. People are having some fun with that. But I think that me personally, as a guy who covers this team, and I have no rooting interest in it, but I get more and more excited to see them play again because they show me something every time that's a little bit different, and especially on the road. And these are all tough environments. They played in 4 full houses and 1 almost full house at Pitt. Florida State has not been drawing. This place was a buzz. This was a big deal here today. And it was also a huge game for that team because they needed to validate themselves into the NCAA tournament conversation. They should be in it because if eyeball test matters, they, to me, have passed it for a month now, almost a month, and clearly did today. So this was a huge opportunity for them to get a rare Q1 win at home. And the Seminoles probably couldn't play any better. And the Tar Heels found ways to beat them, and they did it because this team just has a winning fiber. It's a championship fiber. They have a net cutting fiber. I don't want to go overboard with that, but it's true. That doesn't mean they're going to do that either in D.C. in the ACC tournament or in the NCAA tournament. But I've covered this is my 28th North Carolina basketball team I've covered in some capacity, either in this job where it's all I do is cover them or covering them along with the rest of the league. And this is the toughest Carolina basketball team I've covered. And they combine that with a lot of skill. They combine that with a lot of smarts. They combine that with a lot of experience. They combine that with a coach who has found a way to really push all the right buttons. He's doing a good job. The messaging around coming out of the team is outstanding. The kids echo what the coach says. They reference things that they did in practice all the time. So there's unbelievable. It is an intertwined connection here with this group. They still need to get better. They still can get better. I asked Harrison after the game, I said, how can you guys get better? And the first thing he said was, well, we usually don't start that great. We need to start better. Now, they didn't start well today. And then Trimble missed that layup in transition. And then the next possession, RJ had a bad alley-oop to Jalen Withers. And could have put Carolina really up like 12 or 13. And instead, FSU scores. And Carolina took them a while to get the mojo back, get their groove back. But there's not a lot to pick at right now. And they know it, except the trenches thing, I think, is a great metaphor for who they are, because when a couple of the players told me today after the game, told us after the game today, that when they're in that mindset and they're so embedded in playing with that approach, with that intensity, they don't hear the crowd. There's 94 feet and there's a court and there's baskets and there's an opponent. That's what they're doing. And they kind of block a lot of this stuff out. And every once in a while, when they allow themselves to hear it, they're fueled by it. So this is a lot of fun watching this group come on the road. When Roy was head coach, a couple of his teams, they called it stealing cookies. You go into someone's house, put your hand in the cookie jar, you take the cookies, they never find out. I don't know what this team is taking, but they're taking victories. They're taking victories. They're taking the spirit out of teams. And I would imagine Florida State's like, man, we can't play any better, and we still lost those guys. Armando Bacot had 5 points and 4 rebounds, and they still lost to Carolina. So, and that's the thing. And one other thing, let me throw at you real quickly. Armando has had, 5 points each of the last 2 games? He had 10 points last week at Boston College. A lot of people are dogging him. He's playing good basketball. He didn't have a great game today, but this team is winning without having to go through him. This is a guy that's going to finish the top 3 or 4 all-time in scoring at Carolina. And this club is playing championship-level basketball without Armando doing Armando things, even on the glass. Someone actually advanced the thought that maybe he's their 5th scoring option right now on offense. That's how good this team is if that's the case. I'm not going to say whether it is or isn't. I don't think that would be fair to say, certainly not given what Armando has achieved, but his defense really good. A lot of stuff he's doing out there is really good. A lot of the people around the program think he's played more like a guy who could stick in the NBA than maybe he had previously. And they're winning games, and that's what he cares about the most. In fact, I'll give you this one little tidbit. I normally don't take people into the bowels of the arena, but I finished with the interviews, and we didn't get Armando today. And I'm walking by, and he's sitting about 8 feet from Paxson because the team's flight's delayed because the weather's horrible here right now. And Armando was just sitting there on the phone. I said, safe travels. He goes, you too. And I just thought to myself, he looks so comfortable and so content with the fact that this team is trending toward being a club that can hang laundry in the rafters. And that is what he is driven by. And when a guy who has accomplished all that he has is driven by that, and he's not posting the numbers right now that made him the big-time NIL guy, that made him the Armando that people have known, and it's not bothering him. That is why this team is so selfless, because they see that from him. So they're trench fighters, they're selfless, and they have a tremendous connection. And that's how you win games like today. This was a great win. A lot of teams would have lost this game today. North Carolina won because North Carolina is a damn good basketball team.
I absolutely agree, AJ. I mean, I think they have proved that they're a legit good team, and they're only growing from that, Well, let's see how they do. We've got Georgia Tech, Tuesday, Wednesday?
Tuesday night. I'll be there Tuesday night. Looking forward to it. It's a whiteout in Atlanta, and they'll have another full house. Remember, Georgia Tech beat Duke there.
Yeah.
So the Yellow Jackets could be pretty good on occasion. So the Tar Heels are going to get their best punch too, and that's great. That's what you want to see. If you're a Carolina fan, you want to see the opponents play their very best against the Tar Heels, because that's the only way Carolina's going to get so fortified with many, many coats of armor that are needed when you go into the NCAA tournament.
Absolutely. Well, to the viewers, if you love what we do, if you want to keep up with the content, if you want to see the content after the Georgia Tech game, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned in to TarHeelIllustrated.com. Again, I'm THA staff Chelsea Sipple, and this is THI publisher Andrew Jones.
Thanks.